Thank you very much. There's more people here than I thought there would be, actually. It's a little bit nerve-wracking to see my entire team are in the audience, probably make up half of you. I've only got 10 minutes. We're running, I think, a little bit earlier as well, so it means that we can probably get through a little bit more. First of all, I just wanted to kind of caveat with one thing. My entire session today is on integrating Web3 by learning from those brands who did it wrong. It sounds really, really negative. I promise I've got some really good things to say about those brands as well, but I think it's really good for us in this space to learn from people who haven't necessarily done it the best way, learn from those mistakes when we're on that journey ourselves. A little bit about me. I'm the managing director of Primetime. Who knows Primetime? Put your hands up. Beer brand. Is that? Well, that's my team. Anyone from the back? Brilliant. Have you had a beer already or not? Well, we're on the bar downstairs. We're actually running it. So Primetime, basically beer brand. Very much kind of pioneer in this space of better for you beer. Low calorie, low carb, gluten free, but it tastes amazing, which is why I drink a lot of it. Took that role about a year ago. Prior to that, I was heading up the beauty division at Dyson, very innovative company. And prior to that, I was the head of hygiene at L'Oreal, based in London and Paris. So I've had my fair share of businesses who are very innovative, and that takes me on to my next slide. The reason why I love those brands and the reason why I think I've fallen in love with my passion in business is because they all do innovate. Primetime innovate in the beer space. Different companies innovate in different ways. Some of them innovate in the ways of new product development. Others innovate in places like Web3. They get it wrong, goes really well. You can never really tell until you actually do it, but I love that these companies are actually willing to try in the first place. And that's my caveat, which is why I like these brands that I'm going to tell you have done it wrong in a moment. I put on here a little quote that I read a few weeks back in Harvard Business Review, actually. It's not a quote. Well, it is a quote. Every single year, 3M build their budget. They build their top-down and their bottom-up budget. And their obsession is all around innovation. And 25% of their company growth will always come from innovation in that year. Now, I know that a lot of that is from businesses and obviously launching new products, which is very good. But a lot of it can also be through software and the delving into Web3, which is obviously why we're all here. I think anyone who's here also from a brand or a business, you're in marketing, logistics, whatever it is, you're innovators. That's exactly why you're at the summit today. I'm not an innovator. My team are. I just try and guide them along the way to get to that level of innovation. One of the things that I love about Web3, and this is all around this slide, well, there's multiple different things. I've been in the industry now for quite some time. I actually founded a Web3 consultancy called Not Another NFT back in 2021. Height of the bull market, people were absolutely loving it, buying NFTs left, right, and center. Brands were diving into the space, making mistakes, making great projects. It was a little bit clunky. No one really knew what they were doing. They were trying to navigate the space, and it was a bit of a nightmare. But I think Web3 is a great way for massive brands to innovate. But also really small brands. I'm going to give an example of that today, looking at these bigger brands that have innovated and also how Primetime are innovating in this space as well, as a consumer-driven FMCG beer brand. Web3 has evolved so much. I haven't been on stage talking about Web3 for the last year. If you look at Gavin Wood's definition, so Gavin Woods, if you don't know, he's the co-founder of Ethereum, obviously changed the game when it came to tokenization and NFTs. He coined the phrase of Web3 in 2014. That was a long time ago. It was all around decentralization. It was around a new iteration of the internet that gives power back to the people, your community. We'll talk a lot about engagement today, and that's obviously a huge element of Web3. Really great example of this, which is a little bit counterintuitive, because I've used Gorgeous and the NYX professional makeup example for a brand that's actually done it quite bad. But I'll tell you why in a second. But what they've done is they created a DAO. For those of you who don't know, that's a decentralized autonomous organization to allow those people who are using their platform to vote on the artwork that they were using as their products and for that virtual world. So it's really cool. Great example of decentralization, bringing your community in and actually engaging with them. His other idea was obviously the blockchain and how it would all be blockchain-led. Now, that's no longer the same way today. Other things have come into Web3 that have made it really exciting. With the blockchain, obviously, the enablement of transactions that are more secure, more traceable. Great examples of people who are using this in really great ways. IBM, one of them. Obviously, a lot of their new growth is coming from their on-chain mechanism and their solution. Partnering with the likes of Walmart from a logistical perspective. Ferg, he's our operations manager. I'm sure he'll take some notes. But obviously the blockchain is super, super, super smart. And there are lots of things that businesses can leverage to be able to obviously actually impact their core KPIs, and I'll come back to that in a moment. AI. Last year, I came to Zebu Live, had a chat with a lot of people. AI was never something that was actually spoken about within the Web3 space. And what I think is really interesting about that is if we look at the S-curve, I'm sure we'd all agree that that is actually something which is actually in its more mature growth phase, which is great, because what it means is companies are actually delving into Web3 without even knowing that they're doing it. So I find that really, really interesting. Final one, hyper engagement. Engagement is the thing that made me fall in love with Web3. It was all about looking at something. I've never bought an NFT. I don't invest in crypto, which people find really, really hard to believe because I love the space so much. But for me, it's all about engagement. It's about doing stuff with Web3 that we were never able to do before. It's about that interaction with your customers. Instagram is amazing, and that is the way that you build a community. But ultimately, there's only one way of engaging that community, and that's actually outwardly pushing messages to them. They can't interact with you at the same way. I'll talk to you how Primetime is doing that in a little bit. But obviously, Web3, like I said, the pinnacle of innovation. I'm going to talk now about some brands that have not done it so well. So I'll get to the crux of my actual talk. And again, I want to caveat with this because I love these brands. I've already spoken about how I love Gorgeous with NYX. NYX Professional Makeup is a phenomenal, phenomenal brand. But these brands took the leap and ultimately didn't quite hit the mark, in my opinion. And I've spoken about this to a lot of people. I've also given talks and presentations in the past around Starbucks in terms of how incredible they are for delving into the space with Odyssey. But now it's failed. It's easy for me to say that they did it wrong. First of all, Gorgeous, NYX Cosmetics. Web3 is confusing. It's far too confusing. Too forceful with this Web3 terminology. You've got to remember as well, this was back in 2021 when the majority of these launched, post that bull market. This is when people had enormous issues with the validity of the blockchain. There was enormous issues with the validity of lots and lots of NFT projects out there. The last thing that you want to do is go to your customers and tell them that you're running a Web3-based project or that you're running something on the blockchain. It terrifies everyone. It scares the shit out of them. So we all need to make sure that we're not absolutely not doing that unless it's to the right people. They're not focused on benefit. I'll come back to that in a moment. Consumer-facing language is completely off. NYX Professional Makeup went to their audience and told them that they were launching a DAO, and then they tried to tell people why they were launching a DAO and what it was. Made no sense. Even I didn't get it, and I was working in the space. So that's the first thing. Again, great brand, just didn't quite cut it on that first attempt. That still exists. Their virtual world still exists. It's very cool. Has lots of engaged people. But do they know what Web3 is, and do they want to use it because of that? No, they want to use it because they get a benefit for themselves. That takes me on to my next one, Pizza Hut. I love Pizza Hut, second biggest pizza brand in the world. Awesome. They were obsessed with first to market. 2021, this project came out. It looked like a cool one. It had so much great potential. They launched an NFT, and it was kind of like little bits. It was these little NFT artwork pieces of pizzas that they launched on the blockchain. And they wanted to do it because they wanted to be first to market. They wanted that press, and they wanted to be able to take that first mover advantage. That's really, really cool, but they rushed it. And more importantly, there was absolutely zero utility. Rule number one of anything that you do in business, if it's marketing-centric or if it's outwardly publicly facing, make sure there is a value proposition for your customer. And so many of these projects, when they're launched and they're rushed, they don't have that value proposition. And it's a real shame because people love that, got picked up by the media, but ultimately fell short, in my opinion. Third one, competitor-centric. This is a big one. And I talk about this a lot. If you're going to launch into Web3 and it's from it's a marketing exercise and it's a tool to engage your audience, make sure it's authentic. H&M missed the mark on this one. They were really reactive. They weren't reactive, actually, because this project took a long time to build. They dabbled in the area of Web3 for quite some time, doing a good job. Obviously, they wanted to be innovative, which is brilliant. They're a big brand. Ultimately, they launched a virtual universe, which was a sustainable one. That was their new messaging. They wanted to really drive this element of sustainability, and that's brilliant. The only issue is that H&M sit on about $4.2 billion of stock because they're epitomizing fast fashion. That's really tricky then when the press start picking you up on your virtual universe, saying that this is absolutely ridiculous because it has no alignment with your core brand values. And we can't have that. when brands are delving into Web3 for the first time. The final one is Starbucks. I love Odyssey. I think it was an amazing, amazing platform. But the one thing I will say about Odyssey, time's ticking, so I need to run. One thing I will say about Odyssey, because they've actually just cancelled that, obviously it's come off the platform. Starbucks made the mistake of replacing something that they already had, which was really, really good, with a Web3 project. You should never do that. What you also should never do is interfere with any of your core revenue channels with a Web3 project. It's too risky, and the second it doesn't work, you'll rip it down. All of that time spent innovating is going to be wasted. So that's obviously an example, and like I said, I love those brands. Shop a lot of them, apart from H&M. But ultimately, great brands just missed the mark in terms of innovation. So I had a partnership with Kingston University because I kind of came into this Web3 world, understanding and looking at these mistakes that these brands were making. Sat down with my two old co-founders of Not Another NFT. It's so funny as well, because you look at it and it's so old now, because you'd never build a Web3 consultancy and put NFT in the name, right? But ultimately I did. That was one of my mistakes. But we built this. It was the Launchpad method. So I was an academic contributor for a while at Kingston. And I built this. It's a really simple framework for different brands and businesses to use when they're delving into the space. Massive brands, small brands, doesn't matter, but when they're delving into the space. Founding principle, always make sure that's aligned to your brand, then you won't get caught out, you won't get bad press like H&M do. User centricity, make sure there's a clear value proposition. Make sure that you're breaking barriers to entry. Make sure there's a seamless onboarding ramp, very, very important. Do those two things and you'll engage really, really well with your Web3 project to your existing audience who already shop your brand. Second one, gamification. I get so many people reach out to me now on LinkedIn saying, hey, do you want to gamify your brand? And I'm just like, oh my God, what's this? It's like, I thought that was Web3, but it's not, now it's Web2. And you get really confused. But ultimately, gamification is super important. If you want to engage with that Web3 audience, gamify your project. And finally, continuity. Make sure that there's a roadmap. Make sure that there's something coming in the future. It can't stop with what you launch. Spoken about the ones at the bottom. Time's running out. I'm going to move on. So what about brands that have done it well? I promise you I'll be 2 minutes. Brands that have done it well. So this is Primetime Lager. For those of you who didn't raise your hand, it's a hell of a beer. You can try in a minute. It's down on the bar. We launched a Web3, well, we have launched. Actually, we launched today. Launched a Web3 platform, ultimately, that has a real value proposition to our customers. It's all about engagement, engaging our core community and also appealing to a new one. I'll talk about that in a moment. The onboarding ramp is super seamless. It's so easy. We never talk about Web3 once. We never talk about the blockchain. If you want to know about the blockchain, you can read about it. You can find it. There are some FAQs, but ultimately, we don't talk about the blockchain. And it's continuous. There's always new things coming. This is smart. So this is the platform itself. I'm going to whiz through this. On the right-hand side, you'll see the different benefits that we obviously wanted to bring here. Engaged customers basically are given a free token, or they can pay for tokens if they're VIP-led. In terms of the utility that they actually get for it, the value proposition. The second, they earn the right to vote on things, really important things within our brand. A new rebranding, let's put it to our audience, our engaged audience who are shopping primetime. They earn the right to vote on things like what MPD we're going to bring out next. And it's about engaging them. It's a two-way process of engaging with our customers, unlike other social platforms, which is how it should be. That is how they're going to build that emotive connection with your brand, and that's what every single marketer wants. They get access to events. We do a lot of them. You should come join sometime. Token-gated access to merch and content. That's pretty standard when it comes to Web3 projects. I get that. And consumers can also use their tokens within their Apple Wallet so that in the future they can go into pubs, they can accumulate points, and they can get free beer. And the final one, which is super important, we gather on-chain data. And the reason why that's important is because this is the objective that I wanted to really bring to life when it came to building this platform. Like I said earlier on, we'd never talk about the blockchain, ever. It's a loyalty program. It's the same as the likes of the Pret subscription, probably one of the best loyalty programs in the world. Only one difference, they never, ever track on-chain data. I'm actually going to skip through the first one, I'll come back to that, but that's all about future-proofing. One of the best things that we have with this platform is that we're always collecting on-chain data. That means in the future when it comes to buying our beer in crypto or anything of the sort, anything which is slightly Web3 related, there is a level of interoperability that we can really leverage. So that's the first thing. Second thing is problem solution. We wanted to engage our customers. It's quite simple. Every brand does, like I said. This allows us to do it in a better way than we can do on TikTok and Instagram combined. We wanted to give them the right to make decisions. We wanted to make it more interactive. Final one, or final two ones, incremental growth, engaging a brand new audience. I get to tap into audiences like you who will then look at me and say, he's got the blockchain beer. That's amazing. Heineken can't stand up and do that. So that's obviously a win in itself. But it comes back to my Launchpad method of engaging with that existing customer and then also engaging with a brand new one. The final one is actually my favorite. I don't care if this doesn't work. I don't care if we have 100,000 people on it or 10. It doesn't really matter. What it allows me to do is really foster this innovative culture within the team. That is important. That's what I saw every single day at Dyson. That's what I saw every single day at L'Oreal. It's the fact that the whole team know that they have a freedom to create. They have the freedom to trial new solutions, to fail without consequence, if you're not building this project on top of a revenue channel or something that works well. And they have the freedom to learn. If you look at the budget, at the very bottom of the budget for prime time, every single year that's built, you'll see an innovation pot. The teams can leverage that for everything. They can take it and they can spend £500 a month on whatever they want. As long as they can rationalize it and there is some level of gain and it's pinned to a core business function and not going out and putting it on a pub tab, then generally we're all for it. And I think that more businesses need to leverage Web3 in that way. Keep it simple. Don't talk about the blockchain. Don't talk about Web3. People are already terrified enough of it. And make sure that you're leveraging it to really foster a culture in the business, which is innovative led. Just a final one. That QR code goes through to our link tree, I believe. And also, if you do come up and find me and you want to actually have a token, you can. You'll probably be one of the first people in the public to get one. You can go down to the bar and you can get 10% off. Scan that, take a look. Honestly, it's an incredible brand. We're very much kind of pioneering this better for you space. Big launch just happened in Waitrose if you find one near you and you want to go and shop. And yeah, I think wrapped up. Thanks, everyone.